had sponsored legislation to push Green New Deal policies on our logging industry, and literally went viral pushing DEI, saying that he had secured funding for a permanent DEI office in Congress, and wanted all the hiring to be based on race, gender, and lifestyle proportionally for all hiring in Congress. That's a video. Google it.
In the 116th Congress, we made a recommendation to make permanent the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and I am pleased that this recommendation came to fruition and is now a permanent office.
You served as Vice Chairman of the Committee on the Modernization of Congress. You were proud of this effort. Talk about it. Tell us about it.
So again, campaign slogan was Washington's broken. And I was chosen as a freshman to serve on the committee. Then my sophomore year, I was chosen to actually lead the committee. And the mission was simple: to make Congress be more effective, more efficient, more transparent, to better serve the American people. 200 recommendations later, we're moving in the right direction. Obviously, it's not going to be fixed overnight, but it takes time. You have to invest in technology and best practices. We held dozens and dozens of hearings to hear from all these good government groups. Those changes are about 60% implemented. We still got more work to do, but the House Administration Subcommittee is continuing to focus on implementation of that.
Recently, Congressman Matt Gaetz tweeted out a video of you on the State House floor from a year ago during the Volkswagen electric car and truck vote that went viral.
The pressure in here in Columbia is for me to not even vote red on the board. Y'all might not know this. A dark money entity that was created on Tuesday, the day after we voted for this, I went home and a attack piece went out in my whole district about the fact that I voted for this. I get that the people in Columbia, that the lobby wants me to either not vote or to vote green on this, but my constituents want me to vote red, and they want their tax money spent on core government functions, on their roads, on their schools. That's what they want their money spent on. So they don't want us in here trying to play this government planning thing where we in our bureaus can figure out where the job should be, who should be employed, how much money should be allocated where in the private sector. It never works. It's socialism. It's never worked anywhere before. So what are we doing trying to do it here?
But would you consider the fact that South Carolina's track record on bringing major projects into this state has a winning record, and therefore, again, commerce should be listened to rather than those people back in your district that may not have ever brokered a deal, may not understand what it means of being a project, may not understand economic incentives. So what you're suggesting is we should listen to the people back home in your district rather than the people at Commerce that have been successful at bringing these mega deals to South Carolina.
Mr. Rutherford, I don't think that you could have espoused a philosophy that disagrees more fundamentally than me. I completely disagree with you, and I think that you believe what you just said. But no, I 100% am going to listen to the people back home who I represent in this House, and you should listen to the 40,000 people in your area, and not the bureaucrats at Commerce, and not the lobbyists, and not the multi-billion-dollar international corporations. You should listen to your constituents like I am. So yes, I will always fall back on the common sense of the wonderful people from Taylor's and Greenville Eastside, far more than I will ever listen to unelected bureaucrats, other representatives in here who have been here for far too long and have maybe managed a whole lot of these deals, and far more than I will ever listen to any member out there.
So, Mr. Morgan,
how did that come about?
Yeah, that video has really blown up. I think it has like 40 million views on different platforms. And the amazing part of that video is, I think the reason it resonated with so many people, all I said was representatives should represent their people. The debate was they were bringing $1.3 billion. South Carolina was going to spend $1.3 billion of our tax money in incentives and $400 million of your taxpayer cash to give to a private company to come to Columbia to make electric vehicles. A failing industry that President Trump has called out. Why are we wasting money on this? They had shut down their plant in the UK, but they were going to come here and spend our tax money to force all the companies that were going to work with them, we're going to have to be ESG compliant. So in every way, this was a terrible deal. It's not anything my constituents wanted, not what most of you in the room wanted. Well, I got on the floor and I opposed it. I actually voted no the day before, went home that night, and I got an attack text in my district attacking me for voting against that deal. Every other member of the Freedom Caucus got it as well. And so the next day we had the second vote on it, and I was pretty hot. I was pretty fired up. They were trying to bully people into flipping their votes to vote against their constituents' wishes and vote the way special interests wanted them. Multi-billion-dollar corporations and all these lobbyists who were just salivating over this project. And I went in there and I started speaking, and really I was kind of bringing the house down, saying, I am here to represent my people. They don't want this. This is a bad deal. Well, the minority leader jumps up and he actually said on TV, you're telling us we should listen to the folks back home over the experts in the Commerce Department? And I said, yes, you should listen to the folks that you represent in this chamber. And the crazy thing is, people saw that video and they thought, wow, finally somebody's standing up. And I just have to say, that is what the members of the Freedom Caucus do every single day in chamber. That was nothing new. That was nothing shocking. We need more of that.
Would you be specific concerning which problems you view as the most egregious, and has the Republican majority addressed any of these problems?
So number one issue is debt. $34 trillion in debt. We have done what we can to limit spending in the House majority. I've been in Congress in the minority for 4 years. I've been in the barely majority in the House for 1.5 years. I would say the biggest step that we took was the Fiscal Commission. So historically, when Congress has been unable to manage challenges, we've created a commission to delegate our authority to create procedural improvements to the likelihood of success. It was done in 1983 with the Greenspan Commission, and it was done again with the BRAC Commission in the 90s and 2000s, Basic Relocation Alignment and Closure Commission. Post Cold War, we had to downsize and we couldn't agree on what basis to close. So again, I have co-authored the Fiscal Commission. It has been marked up in the Budget Committee, is currently waiting a vote on the House floor. It was passed in a bipartisan manner. And we actually also voted for this in September of last year. We're going to talk about continuing resolutions. I have never voted for a continuing resolution or spending with the exception of last September. And that's because Speaker McCarthy put on the floor H.R. 2, which solves our southern border, solves border security, the Fiscal Commission, which I helped write, which gives us the procedural mechanism to actually address entitlement spending. And last but certainly not least, it reduced spending enormously, 20% lower than Speaker Pelosi's spending levels. And again, I voted for that. 21 Republicans did not. And they said it wasn't good enough.
Is Columbia broken? Give us some specifics, and has the Republican majority addressed any of these concerns?
Columbia is broken, but it's getting a lot better. And it's been getting a whole lot better with a lot of sunlight and transparency that we have forced. And it has not been an easy road by any stretch. I mean, they have been fighting tooth and nail. If you haven't followed the story, and I'm assuming there's plenty of people in here that won't know the story of the Freedom Caucus, we were kicked out of the Republican caucus because they tried to make us sign a loyalty pledge that we would never call out other Republicans for how they were voting. Wouldn't campaign against them, wouldn't endorse against them, wouldn't even post pictures of the public voting board on social media because it made other Republicans look bad for how they were voting. That's how bad things were in Columbia. They kicked us out, they ejected us out of Congress, and then they spent over $1 million in attack ads against Mike Burns, Ashley Trantham, Alan Morgan, Josiah Magnuson, me, and the other Freedom Caucus members. Funded by lobbyists and special interest groups, coordinated with House leadership and the Democrats. When do you see a more glaring example of the uniparty? I would argue that you're not going to find it. If you listen to Glenn Beck or other people that really follow this, they say, we are ground zero. South Carolina, the fight for the Freedom Caucus is ground zero. We're leading the conservative movement. We're the ones that found out there was a pediatric transgender clinic in South Carolina, funded by your tax dollars, messing with kids 4 years old to 16, giving them puberty blockers and referring them to surgeons. Nobody wanted to touch that, which baffled me. So we went after them. I FOIA'd them. And guess what happened? We shut down the clinic just by calling them out. Then we found out there were schools that were teaching CRT, blatantly breaking state law. On video, a woman saying, I'm here to find co-conspirators to break state law. We just have to teach this indoctrination under a different name. We once again tried to get other people. Nobody would touch it. So we actually sued those school districts and got the programs removed. Like, we've actually fought on the issues that people, we got budget transparency for the first time in a century on special projects. We call them out. We fight the spending. That's what we need is bold conservative. We fight and win when we fight for our values.
There have been some concerns raised with both of you regarding your attendance and missed voting records, so let's clarify. Representative Morgan, have you missed 393 votes since 2019? Are you an absentee legislator?
I have missed those votes, and yet that makes me have one of the best attendance records in the South Carolina legislature. We take thousands of votes, and by the way, the other campaign knows this. We take thousands of votes. I almost never miss. I've missed from illnesses because, as anybody knows that has little kids, we unfortunately get it from the church nursery and spread it around. My father-in-law died, as many of you are aware, and we missed some votes during then. But even with those missed votes, I have one of the best attendance records. I've almost never missed session, and I almost never miss votes. And I'll tell you one thing, I've never proxy voted in my life, nor would I, because that's insane. And Nancy Pelosi never should have allowed it. Ironically, if you compare attendance records, which you should do, that will be your answer on that issue.
You stated recently at a county GOP meeting that you had missed 158 votes during your 5.5-year tenure in the United States Congress. 136 of those votes were due to mandatory military training with the South Carolina Air National Guard, which is highly laudable. But a question regarding your use of proxy voting has come to light. In 2020, during COVID, under Speaker Pelosi, House Resolution 965 was passed allowing representatives to stay in their districts and have a surrogate in the House vote in their place via proxy. 0 Republicans voted for this resolution, you included. In fact, you put forth a strong statement denouncing this practice. Yet, you voted 180 times using a proxy during 2021 and 2022, and only used a South Carolina representative for 25 of those votes. Is it true between 2019 and 2020, you were ranked 15th as the most absent representative in Congress and 25th out of 215 Republicans who used proxy voting in 2021? Is this an accurate characterization of your voting record?
So first, proxy voting is terrible. I voted against it. I am totally against it. Republican leadership said we cannot have people that are not able to vote. So every single member of the South Carolina delegation, except for Clyburn, used proxy voting. 80% of Republicans use proxy voting. This is a distraction. I have missed 22 votes out of probably 3,000. I missed 136 while on military orders. I don't think that that's going to be held against me. I don't understand how we keep doing these numbers games. I mean, we're not technically allowed to talk about it. Look, I mean, if you serve in a part-time state legislature, and if that legislature meets from January to May for the last 6 years, there's about 260 days where you could cast a vote. And I think it's unreasonable for somebody to miss a vote on 103 of those days. I think that that's reasonable for me to point out. If somebody misses 100 votes on 103 days out of 260, I think that that's fair.
Our 3rd District Congressman Jeff Duncan is likely not running again due to a marital indiscretion. Soon after the 2022 Republican primary, a scandal regarding her marriage and infidelity came to light. Many of us are old enough to remember back in the 90s when the actions of Bill Clinton had the country asking if character was the important issue we should consider when voting. Perhaps especially for Republican women, this comes down to a matter of trust. Congressman Timmons, what factors guide your moral decision-making in your public and private life?
Thank you. I did get divorced last year. Sarah has been one of my best friends for 15 years, and she is still one of my best friends. It is extremely sad that our marriage failed, and it's just sad. So I have worked hard to represent the people of the 4th Congressional District. I've gotten results. I vote right. I talked to Sarah this morning. She wanted to be here. She has depositions. She's fully supporting my re-election. She knows my record better than anyone's. So I would say that her continued support of me speaks volumes. Look, it is sad that I'm no longer married, but yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you. Representative Morgan, you voted for a school choice bill regarding education scholarship accounts, commonly referred to as the ESA bill. And there have been allegations regarding a conflict of interest because the company you run would financially benefit from the bill. Representative Morgan, is there a conflict of interest here, and would you benefit financially from the passage of the ESA bill?
Yeah, no, that's blatantly false. My company would in no way benefit at all. I actually don't even think that's the exact criticism. I think people are trying to say that my relative's business, my business doesn't have anything to do with school choice. We run a Christian music publishing company called Majesty Music. Have you ever heard of Patch the Pirate? It's one of the largest kids programs, evangelical kids programs on Christian radio in the world, and it's a privilege and honor to continue that, the work with my father-in-law, Ron Hamilton. We don't have anything to do with school choice. I'm a huge supporter of school choice, ESAs and PACE, both versions we need today. We need kids to have the option to go wherever the parent sees fit that is best for the child. The money should follow the student. It should not be funding failed systems. I've been a big advocate for that. I support universal school choice. I think that's the best way to get there, to have the best outcomes for our kids, who it should be about. I think the attempted allegation is that relatives of mine would benefit from a program, which is also false. My brother and Josiah Magnuson, who both work with a marketing company that does some things with private schools, they abstained from the vote they didn't want it to appear that they had some kind of conflict. Well, they also got an opinion from ethics that said, yeah, there's absolutely no conflict whatsoever. Their company's not going to benefit one dime from the choice program, so there's literally no conflict whatsoever in almost any direction you look at it. I've been a huge advocate for school choice at the state level. I will continue to be at the federal level.
On August 22nd, 2022, you voted for Representative Magnuson's amendment to the heartbeat bill that would put victims of rape and incest that end their pregnancy in prison for 2 years. This position is opposed by all the pro-life groups and overwhelmingly opposed by conservatives in the South Carolina District 4. The vote was defeated by a large majority of Republicans voting against it. Why did you vote for it?
I think that's actually completely inaccurate. I believe that was a tabling motion on an amendment. My record is crystal clear on this issue. I think I voted for 4 different pieces of pro-life legislation: the heartbeat bill, the full protection from conception bill. On the heartbeat bill, Chairman McGravy just last month in Spartanburg, I told members, some of you were there, when he said that bill would not have passed but for my work on that issue, one of the reasons he's endorsing me. My record is crystal clear on this. I have voted to explicitly exempt women from prosecution on 4 different pieces of pro-life legislation. I believe the amendment you're talking about was an amendment that Magnuson had put up that dealt with anybody that performed a procedure and whether or not they could have criminal penalties. And it was a motion of whether or not to continue debate. There were a lot of members who were asking questions about it debating, and it was cut short. But no, I've never voted for giving women criminal prosecution. And my record is clear on that. I voted on 4 different pieces of legislation on that issue. We need to make sure that we are ending abortion in our time and also caring for all the victims in abortion and giving women the resources through pregnancy centers and the rehabilitative services for the women that have gone through this in order to deal with this tough issue. We need to put life foremost, and we need to protect women as well.
Thank you. Okay, this next question is from Representative Morgan to Congressman Timmons. According to the Federal Election Commission website, you have repeatedly used your campaign funds for luxury hotels like the Waldorf Astoria, expensive bottles of wine, and to lease a luxury BMW, all while you're using hundreds of thousands of dollars in franked mail, which is taxpayer funded during an election year. How do you reconcile using over $600,000 of special interest PAC money for personal comfort rather than to campaign and over $400,000 of tax dollars to campaign while you claim to be a fiscal conservative?
Thank you for that. So first, when you fundraise, you spend money to fundraise. You have dinner, You go on a trip somewhere to raise money wherever you're going, and that's just the system that we have in place, and there's nothing unethical about it. It's perfectly permissible. I've done everything I can to raise as much money as possible to get conservatives elected to Congress, to support Donald Trump. So look, there's nothing untoward about my campaign spending. As it relates to Frank Mail, I have 800,000 constituents. Over the last 5 years, I've averaged about $185,000 to $200,000 a year to give them my cell phone number, to give them access, to keep them informed about my positions. I'm doing my job. And it's a bizarre attack. And if you look at it across just the South Carolina delegation, I'm actually 4th out of 7 in using franked mail to inform my constituents and to make sure they have access to me. So it's a bizarre attack. I also just want to say I'm very pleased that Adam's answered the last question. He did actually vote for a bill that would put women that have an abortion in the first week that are raped or the victims of incest. It was August 30th, 2022. It failed. 9 people voted for it. It was Josiah's amendment. So I guess it is good that he didn't mean to do that. But I do think that that is an extremely important position, and I'd like to learn more about an accidental vote.
You both have great scorecards from conservative organizations. So what differentiates you from your opponent?
Thank you. I mean, we agree that I vote right. The issue is tactics. The issue is tactics. My approach to being a legislator has gotten results. I've passed 4 bills. I've passed 200 recommendations. I've served my constituents. We're getting results. I am not the loudest voice in the room. I've never had anyone yell at me into changing my mind. I will continue to work hard with anybody on any issue that I agree on. And I am trusted by my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I'm respected by my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. And my ability to get things done is because of the manner that I operate, because of the tactics.
I think you've heard it over and over again today. My opponent believes that the problem in Washington are the 21 people who are fighting every single day for us. The members of the Freedom Caucus and the Family Caucus who, yeah, they do speak their beliefs loudly. They also actually speak up and fight for their beliefs. They don't cave, they don't compromise, they don't behind closed doors pressure conservatives into backing down, which is what I have heard from members of the Freedom Caucus is exactly what my opponent does. In fact, I was even told that during the floor vote, he actually went up to members and was threatening, speaking for McCarthy, threatening to remove people from their committee assignments if they didn't cave on that vote with whether or not to undo the Pelosi rule changes, which had gutted the floor of the House so that members couldn't amend conservative legislation. And I categorically reject the idea that you voted correctly. I never said that. I would never even remotely think that. You voted to give illegal immigrants welfare just last month, which is insane. It's what's incentivizing them to come here. Has proxy votes after blasting Pelosi for doing it. Had sponsored legislation to push Green New Deal policies on our logging industry, and literally went viral pushing DEI, saying that he had secured funding for a permanent DEI office in Congress, and wanted all the hiring to be based on race, gender, and lifestyle proportionally for all hiring in Congress. That's a video. Google it. William Timmons, DEI. That's insane.
So Adam likes to take credit for things that he did not do. The conservative majority, supermajority in Columbia, has been responsible for passing constitutional carry, for advancing school choice, for doing all of these things that he says that he is responsible for. But that's just not the case. He is on the fringe of issues. He does not vote right. And he said in his announcement, and he said in mail or subsequent, and we'll get it for you, that I vote right. He doesn't vote right. Whether he meant to vote to imprison rape and incest victims, I don't know. Maybe he's changing his mind now because he did. I promise you, you're going to be seeing that. Josiah wrote the bill, and he voted for it. Josiah wrote the amendment, and he voted for it. I also want to point out, in the 70s, all of our textile jobs went overseas, to China specifically. And our leaders 35 years ago, were able to incentivize BMW to come here. I represent 800,000 people. I would say at least 150,000 of those jobs are from BMW, from those decisions. So I would argue that he doesn't vote right on economic development. So voting right is not everything, but it is the core thing. And I vote right consistently. I would argue that he does not. And the tactics that he has exhibited in Columbia that have caused him to earn the distrust of his colleagues, to not respect his advocacy, is not something that's going to solve the challenges that are facing this country. We're not going to be able to scream and yell and engage in these theatrics to fix debt. It is going to take a bipartisan effort. We're not going to be able to get the economy back where it needs to be. We're not going to be able to secure the southern border. We have to do all of these things, and you're not going to do it by banding together with the loudest voices in the room. You're just not.
I don't know that I could have a more clear presentation. Go back to the question you asked before. The idea that socializing and the private sector and being engaged in corporate welfare and corporate cronyism, that is something to be proud of and to hit me on when I am literally fighting for something that is in the Republican Party platform to end the waste of taxpayer money on socializing the private sector, giving taxpayer money from certain companies to their competitors to try to plan and develop the economy by government bureaucrats. It's just baffling to me. And I think it helps inform all of you. Like, think to your roots. Think to your core values, what you believe, what you espouse, what you teach your children, what you want to see the future of our country. You do have a choice. You have a choice between the two of us. It's clearly presented before you today. I am thrilled and honored to be in this room with so many of you. Some of you have endorsed me, like Sheriff Hobart Lewis, and Congressman Ralph Norman, and some of the people I mentioned earlier that are in higher offices. And I'm thrilled to have those. General Flynn, Matt Gaetz, some different conservative fighters from different areas. But you know, the people that I get most excited about having the endorsement of, they all live in district, and they're all the local grassroots fighters that I watched your faces. I watched your faces as the allegation that I've not actually been involved, that me and my group, we haven't actually accomplished any of the conservative stuff. I saw your faces because so many of you, some of you who I don't always agree with, sometimes we go back at each other, but you know what? I show up in district. I show up to people who I get along with, people that I disagree with. We go back and forth. We fight for our values. I show up. I speak up. And South Carolina is better for it. I want to fight for you. I want to fight with you. I want to lock arms with the fellow patriots of this area, Greenville, Spartanburg, and I want to take D.C. by storm with upstate South Carolina values. That's exactly what I want to do. And yes, we're in a contentious primary, and we got to, show kind. But honestly, I just want to put myself on your ballot with my record. Go fact check everything we're saying. Go watch the speeches, see what we've done for years, and make a choice. It's your choice. Who do you want to represent you? I would be thrilled and privileged and honored to represent you. I love my work at Majesty Music and Passion Pirate, and I love my family, and I know that this is a sacrifice, as the state level has been. But it is a worthy, valiant effort because we have a country to save, we have kids' futures on the lines, and I want to fight for you. Thank you so much.